We're taught to look for one specific key to success. We're told if we just work hard enough or get lucky enough, the door to wealth will swing open. But building a billion-dollar empire from nothing isn't about a single key. It's about a sequence. There is a precise psychological code required to move from the bottom to the top. In the early 1900s, Howard Hughes Sr. was at the absolute bottom of that sequence. He was a boy hauling heavy blocks of ice through Texas heat for a few cents, while people his own age threw trash at him from the windows of passing cars. His environment was a cage. His mother was sick. His family survived on thin soup. And when he told his father he wanted more, he was told to stay in his place. His own family expected him to accept a life of permanent poverty. This raises a difficult question. How does a person with zero capital and no network navigate the psychological trajectory required to cross this gap? The first shift is learning to burn the pain. Psychology suggests we only move to seek pleasure or avoid pain. Howard took the humiliation of his childhood and chose to use it as a fuel source, an obsession to ensure he'd never be looked down upon again. The catalyst for this change was a simple newspaper article. He read about a man who had started in a position just like his and ended up as the richest person in the country. It gave him the permission he needed to reject his father's worldview. That man was Andrew Carnegie. His story was the validated proof Howard needed to believe his situation was a starting point, not a life sentence. This allowed Howard to rewire his identity. He stopped seeing himself as a laborer and started adopting the standards of the person he intended to become. Driven by this new identity, he fled. He snuck onto a freight train heading for the Texas oil fields, physically removing himself from an environment that only knew how to produce poverty. Wealth cannot begin to accumulate until you've destroyed the internal limits you were born with. Howard found work as a manual laborer for a wealthy farmer, but he realized that most people around him were simply trading their time for a daily wage. He decided to ask better questions. While his peers were asking for an extra $1 a day, Howard went to the farmer and asked for the blueprint of how he had built his wealth in the first place. The lesson he extracted was simple. You don't get rich through physical effort alone. You get rich by taking responsibility for others and solving problems at scale through systems. Howard immediately validated this through action. To solve a labor problem for the farmer, he took charge of the crew at 3 a.m., organized them into a production line, and finished a week's worth of fencing in 24 hours. He had found a core economic truth. Labor creates a wage, but creating a system to manage that labor creates capital. The final stage of the code is enduring delayed rewards. Howard moved into the oil business, choosing to live in near poverty for years while he leased land and drilled dozens of dry holes. He refused to settle for a safe, smaller paycheck. He eventually stopped relying on blind effort and hired a specialized geologist. This shift from trying harder to leveraging expert knowledge led him to his first massive oil strike. He didn't stop there. He delayed his reward once again, reinvesting every cent to buy a refinery. This allowed him to control the entire process, scaling his wealth from millions into the billions. By following this sequence, Howard successfully turned a life of zero capital into an industrial empire. But there was a hidden cost to his obsession. At the height of his power, Howard lived in a massive mansion, yet he was essentially alone. His wife had left him, and his children had become the same entitled, cruel people he had once despised as a boy. The only person he had left was a longtime friend who was suddenly involved in a catastrophic accident. Both of his friend's kidneys failed, and Howard realized his billions couldn't buy a new organ when time had run out. Howard remembered a stranger who had helped him board that train when he was a boy. He decided to match that kindness, volunteering to donate his own kidney to save his friend's life. When they both woke up in the recovery room, Howard felt a level of satisfaction he hadn't found in any business deal. Seeing his friend alive felt more significant than any financial milestone he had ever reached. This psychological code provides the path to financial capital, but it doesn't account for the human cost of the journey. $1 billion is a powerful tool, but it is no replacement for the relationships you build along the way.